At 10:52 p.m. on April 24, 2021, a phone inside a farmhouse in rural Michigan sent a single letter. K. Nothing more. No goodbye. No argument. No panic. Just one keystroke. Within hours, Dee Ann Warner would disappear, not from a...
In Lenawee County, legacy matters. This isn't suburban Michigan. This is agricultural Michigan. Long roads, wide fields, barns that echo at night. Communities where people measure trust in decades, not days. Dee wasn't an outsider. Her family had farmed that land for generations. She grew up surrounded by harvest cycles and She had been married to Dale Warner for 15 years. Outwardly, they looked like a working rural couple. Property, equipment, business ties. Privately, according to later court filings and family accounts, the relationship had become volatile. Control issues, financial disputes, emotional tension. Criminal behavioral research shows something consistent. The moment a controlling partner senses abandonment is statistically one of the most dangerous phases in a relationship. Leaving isn't just separation, it's exposure. The day itself was unremarkable. She handled business matters, communicated normally, no distress calls, no frantic texts. If you had spoken to her that afternoon, nothing would have sounded unusual. But sometimes the most catastrophic days begin quietly. That night, inside the farmhouse, something happened. We don't know the exact words spoken. We don't know who raised their voice first. But at 10:50, Dale told others she had left voluntarily, needed space. But voluntary departures leave trails. Gas receipts, ATM withdrawals, phone activity. There were none. And here's where psychology enters the frame. When someone fabricates a disappearance, they often rely on ambiguity. She left is vague. It delays urgency. It buys time. By the morning after Dee Ann Warner vanished, law enforcement in Lenawee County knew something didn't add up. Her car was in the driveway, her purse was inside, her phone hadn't left the property's Wi-Fi range. The story Dale told neighbors, that she had left voluntarily, raised more questions than answers. Investigators immediately began to focus on the farmhouse and the surrounding farmland. Rural properties like this can be both a blessing and a curse for law enforcement. Privacy is abundant, but so is space for concealment. Grain silos, fuel tanks, barns, equipment sheds all became areas of interest. The first forensic breakthrough came from her phone. That final message, K. It was a simple letter. Law enforcement conducted multiple sweeps of the property. They looked into barns with locked gates, grain storage areas, equipment sheds, fuel and slurry tanks. All the while, Dale maintained that Dee had left voluntarily. But inconsistencies appeared. The locks on certain sheds had been changed recently. Some equipment had been moved late at night according to surveillance logs. Tire tracks suggested heavy machinery had been used in areas where Dee had no reason to be. Investigators were beginning to suspect that her disappearance was not voluntary and that the property itself might conceal the truth. As time passed, Dee's case became cold in public perception, but her family never stopped searching. Media attention faded, tips from neighbors dried up, investigators revisited leads, but no body had been found. Yet those closest to Dee refused to accept the "she left voluntarily" narrative. Friends noted that she never left her children. Employees knew her as someone meticulous, never impulsive. Family remembered her speaking of leaving, but carefully planning it. 3 years went by, and the farm remained untouched. The first concrete proof was now in hand, but questions remained. How long had she been in the tank? Was the act... The discovery of Dee Ann Warner's remains inside the tank in 2024 changed everything. Law enforcement quickly focused on Dale Warner. Prosecutors alleged that Dee had been killed the night she disappeared, April 24, 2021, and that her body had been concealed in the tank to avoid detection. Dale maintained his innocence, claiming he had nothing to do with his wife's disappearance. But evidence suggested otherwise. The tank had been recently sealed, and investigators found traces of activity around it late at night. Tire tracks and heavy equipment logs indicated movement consistent with handling a large object. Witnesses noted unusual behavior from Dale immediately following Dee's disappearance, including agitation, inconsistent statements, and rural properties like the Warner farm are often overlooked in initial searches. Barns, storage sheds, and tanks provide cover. Investigators realized the tank was not just a storage unit. It was located in an area of the farm not visible from the main road. It had recently been accessed in a way inconsistent with normal farm operations. This suggested not just opportunity, but knowledge. Someone who knew the property intimately could commit a crime and hide it in plain sight. Once investigators confirmed the presence of human remains, Dale Warner was arrested. Prosecutors described the alleged crime as a carefully concealed murder on a property that should have been safe for the victim, planned to avoid detection for years. The community in Lenawee County was stunned. Family members expressed disbelief, grief, and anger. Friends described Dee as practical, organized, and loyal, someone who never would have left her children. The case sparked discussions about domestic abuse, the warning signs of controlling relationships, and the risks faced by women attempting to leave. For years, people had After Dee Ann Warner's remains were found in the tank, Lenawee County authorities faced the challenge of converting years of circumstantial evidence into a prosecutable case. The problem investigators confronted was not just the crime itself, but the silence that had shrouded it for nearly 3 years. Without witnesses, without immediate physical evidence, the prosecution had to rely on patterns, psychology, and forensic precision. The tank. Investigators conducted a meticulous forensic sweep of the industrial tank. Human remains were preserved in a way consistent with delayed discovery, allowing forensic experts to estimate the approximate time of death, coinciding with the night of. At the trial, forensic psychologists and behavioral analysts painted a chilling portrait. Control as identity. Some individuals define themselves entirely through dominance over family, property, and social perception. Threat of divorce. For such individuals, divorce represents not just relationship loss, but social humiliation and perceived failure. Isolation of the victim. Removing the victim from potential witnesses and safe spaces is often the first step in intimate partner homicide. According to experts, the environment Dee lived in, a private rural property with barns, Domestic homicide cases often reveal broader social dynamics. In Lenawee County, small communities can mask warning signs because neighbors trust appearances. Reputation and pride can influence behavior, sometimes escalating violence when control is threatened. Cases like Dee's challenge assumptions about safety, showing that danger can exist even in the seemingly quiet countryside. Investigators also noted that delayed reporting and long-term absence allowed patterns to emerge, making the case more about behavioral analysis than immediate evidence. A key element in the case was how the farm itself became part of the crime. Dee's home, workplace, and social sphere were all intertwined. Control. By the time Dale Warner went to trial, the community in Lenawee County was watching closely. Headlines had faded, but the horror of Dee Ann Warner's disappearance and the discovery of her body inside a farm tank left a lasting impression. The trial wasn't just about evidence. It was about psychology, perception, and the clash between control and freedom. Prosecutors painted a chilling picture. The victim was methodically silenced. The property that should have been her sanctuary became her prison, and the person entrusted to love her allegedly turned that control into a deadly tool. The defense tried to inject doubt, emphasizing the absence of eyewitnesses, arguing for alternative explanations, and questioning the precision of forensic timelines. But for jurors, the combination of forensic evidence, behavioral analysis, and circumstantial patterns. Why would someone allegedly kill rather than face divorce? Experts highlighted multiple factors. Identity and control. When a person equates self-worth with authority over family, losing control is experienced as a personal annihilation. Social reputation. In tight-knit rural communities, divorce is visible. Loss of status or public humiliation can trigger extreme responses. Perceived threat. Dee's departure wasn't just emotional, it represented a challenge to authority, triggering a high-risk response. Criminologists point out that premeditated concealment within familiar spaces, barns, tanks, machinery, is characteristic of offenders who combine opportunity, knowledge, and a belief they can evade detection. The aftermath of Dee's death rippled through Lenawee County. Family members, 3 years of silence ended with a discovery that shocked a community. Yet the ultimate question lingers. If someone's sense of self is